Okay, so getting back into it, here is an article that we have John Ramsey going directly at individuals for seeming to suggest that Burke was involved in the cover-up for his sister. So let's first watch a little video and see what John has to say and what they're reporting on first.
JonBenet Ramsey's father is begging police to solve her murder. 28 years after his daughter was found dead in their family home, John Ramsey is now pleading with police to follow a DNA lead he thinks could be the key to cracking the case. Telling people in an interview published November 21st, "We're begging the police to engage. There are cutting-edge DNA labs that want to help and who believe they can move the case forward." According to the 80-year-old, the Boulder, Colorado Police Department isn't proceeding with the testing of genetic material he says was found at the crime scene in 1996. Telling the outlet, "Of the items sent to the labs in the beginning, 6 or 7 of them were returned untested. We don't know why they were not tested, but they were not tested. The garrote used to strangle JonBenet and a number of items just were sent back. We're not asking them to do anything weird, just do your job, test the DNA." In response to John's claims, Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern issues a statement to E! News saying, "The killing of JonBenet was an unspeakable crime, and this tragedy has never left our hearts. We are committed to following up on every lead, and we are continuing to work with DNA experts and our law enforcement partners around the country until this tragic case is solved." However, John doesn't seem convinced that Boulder PD will make any progress on their own, almost 3 decades after his 6-year-old daughter was found sexually assaulted, beaten, and strangled in the basement of the family home the day after Christmas. Going on to say, "The chief of police is in charge. Nobody can come in and help him with solving a crime unless he asks for help. If it stays in the hands of the Boulder police, it will not be solved, period." But that doesn't mean John, who is JonBenet's only surviving parent since his wife Patsy Ramsey died in 2006, has completely given up hope. Explaining, "If they accept help, all the help that's out there that's available and offered, it will be solved. Yes, I believe it will be solved." John's latest comments on the case come ahead of the highly anticipated docuseries Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey, which he participated. His comments on the "Accept help, all the help that's out there that's available and offered, it will be solved. Yes, I believe it will be solved." John's latest.
I just want to see JonBenet in motion.
Comments on the case come ahead of the highly anticipated docuseries Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey, which he participated in, set to premiere on Netflix November 25th.
Billboard is apologizing to Taylor.
Milking it and making a little money. So to start, based on Burke possibly being on the phone that night, hearing Burke in the background, and some of the ways that he's conducted himself very suspiciously in police interviews, some individuals think that he's autistic, and the fact that he's hit JonBenet over the, well, we don't know if he's hit her in the head, but he has clubbed her with a golf club before over something that he was upset about. Many people think it's not far-fetched to think about Burke in this context. So it starts off by saying, the article starts off by saying that John Ramsey has heard enough about this theory in reference to, individuals saying that it was Burke who did this to JonBenet. Nearly 30 years after his and late wife Patsy Ramsey's 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet Ramsey, was murdered, he shut down speculation that their son Burke, who was 9 years old at the time, had anything to do with the crime in 1996. And he goes on to quote and say, "Now, you know your children," John explained in a November 22 episode of Crime Junkie podcast. We wanted him to be separated from the chaos. And when host Ashley Flowers suggested Burke, now 37, has any knowledge of what happened to his sister, John maintained his stance. No, he reiterated. Burke is a very solid person despite all. He went to college, graduated, got a good job ever since. Well thought of by his employers, very disciplined, buys used cars. He's a good adult. What? He's a good adult, and he was a good son. What the heck? First of all, he buys used cars. He buys used cars. So what? What is that? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You know, he's a good guy. He went to college. I get all that. He's a good guy. He's a good kid. He went to college. You know, but even in the grand scheme of things, if you go into college, what the heck does that have to do with you boinking your sister over the head in a rage fit because she took your pineapples? What does that have to do with anything? It's possible that was the case again. It very much is possible. But you act like somebody being exonerated and moving on with their life and getting a good job and going to college and then buying a used car has any bearing on whether or not they left the past life in which they unalived their baby sister. What? And then you go on to say, which Patsy and John already speak weirdly to me. I don't understand why they do it, but it's a consistency. It's a consistency of speaking weirdly. He is a good adult and he was a good son. Yo, he is still your son, my guy. What are you talking about? Did we miss something? Yo. The 80-year-old emphasized his trust in his son. If he knew anything, it would not be something he thought was important. John continued, saying of a theory that Burke had gotten up from bed the night before his sister's murder. That's fiction. There's so much fiction out there. John, you're giving me these short answers. You're not explaining yourself. You're just saying that this is a lie. Okay, can you tell me how it's a lie? Can you give me a reason to believe why it's not a lie, or or can you give me a reason to believe why it's a lie and why it's fiction? Please. I'm begging you to explain something to me. This is the stuff that I am really trying here to give John the benefit of the doubt, but this is the stuff that throws me off. If he knew anything, it would not be something he thought was important. What? I'm asking you, did your son unalive your daughter? And you said, no, Burke is a solid person. Does he have any knowledge is the question of what happened to his sister. No, if he knew anything, it would not be something he thought was important. If he knew anything, what you telling me, John? If he knew anything, it would just be something that he didn't think is important, which would explain the nonchalant behavior Burke displays in the interview room with the cops. He continued saying of a theory that Burke had gotten up from bed the night before his sister's murder. That's fiction. Oh, to kind of refute the idea that Burke had gotten up and went and gotten some pineapples, and JonBenet followed him downstairs to get some, and maybe she, took one and he whacked her over the head with something. As he noted of his son allegedly saying he had gotten out of bed and gone downstairs the night before JonBenet was killed. I didn't know he came back down if he did. John, how would you have known he had come back down, John? How would you have known that? You stay on the third floor, John. Your room is opposite of this young man's room. If I understand the schematics correctly, your room is on the third floor. Burke and, well, all of the kids were on the second floor. And Burke is far on the other side. So how would you know if he had gotten up? Like, why are we even talking about that? He emphasized Burke would have said something about what? What would Burke be talking about, man? Like, John also defended his son's disposition in a 2016 interview with Dr. Phil McGraw, where he maintained a smile for most of the conversation when discussing the theory that he killed his sister with Dr. Phil in 2016. Burke said, "I don't know what to say to that because that's not what happened. The things that were interpreted by the internet crowd, well, he's smiling," John recalled of the infamous interview. Burke talks with a smile. John's defense of his son comes shortly after he explained why the public speculation that he committed his daughter's murder doesn't bother him. Once your reputation is tarnished, rightly or wrongly, it never goes back to pure white, he explained to People in an interview published November 24th. That's just life. John, you say some really interesting things. It's not that you refute the idea that your son would do something like this. It's how you do it. You tell us that Burke wouldn't remember anything. And if it were to happen, he would have said something. Well, or he wouldn't have thought it was important. Well, why would he, if it's where you said it was? Why would Burke? I'm getting confused because either Burke would say something about it or he would not. Which one is it? And this is confusing me because it's like, do you know your own son for real, where you can express your son to us, where we can understand more about your son? Because you just confirm things that we see. Yo, what's wrong with this boy? Why is he smiling? Oh, that's Burke. He just talks with a smile. I don't know if I believe that. I really don't. And then you go on to say, once your reputation is tarnished, that's just what it is. You just gave up. You don't want to try to exonerate yourself from public humiliation. To just be like, oh, I mean, yeah, I don't mind being defamed or whatever. It's just, it is what it is. I get that on one hand. But on the other hand, the way that y'all just casually, Because I think that he and Patsy did have a lawsuit out there on behalf of Burke. So I know you're not afraid to open up some sort of litigation against someone. Contaminated scene. After Patsy called 911 at 5:52 in the morning to report her daughter, JonBenet Ramsey, being kidnapped, she and John Ramsey also reached out to a number of friends who came right over to support them. In turn, in addition to responding officers, there were people milling around the Ramseys' 5,000 square foot home. I thought it was 7,200 or something like that. All day before John found JonBenet's body in the basement shortly after 1:30 p.m. I should have removed all of those people from the scene. That was a crime scene mistake, retired Boulder Police Detective Bob Whitson recalled in the Netflix docuseries Cold Case, Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey. But at the time, it looked like a legitimate kidnapping. So I thought, well, these are the support system of the Ramseys, and I let them stay. Yeah, but detective, even if it was a legitimate kidnapping, you still got to clear the crime scene to find anything that you can find, any clues. Letting them stay and just like mill around the house and destroy evidence, that's not police protocol. It's just not. Everybody has to get out so we can see what's going on. Not knowing she was dead when he found her, John said in the series he had first tried to untie the cord and that was bound around her hands. Knots were too tight, he said, but he did remove a piece of duct tape that was covering her mouth and tossed it onto a blanket that had been with the body. He then carried her upstairs, which according to investigators ensured that the evidence collected from the body, the pajamas she was wearing, the tape, etc., was contaminated. There may have been some evidence on the duct tape if it wasn't removed, Whitson said in the series. 2 faulty searches. Police who responded to Patsy's 911 call searched the 3 upper levels of the Ramseys' home and the basement, but it wasn't until detectives suggested that John do another sweep of the house nearly 8 hours later that her body was found in a part of the basement that used to be the coal room. One of the cops did not open the door where JonBenet was lying. Fox News' Carol McKinley, who covered this case at the time, said in the Netflix series, "Major mistake. I believe he lives with that to this day." Retired Boulder PD Commander John San Augustine noted in the series, "You never have someone outside of law enforcement doing a search." No, you don't. Thank you for confirming that, because that's what we've been saying this entire time. You never do that. However, when John looked in the cold room, he said her body was right there in front of me. Why did these cops do such a bad job of searching this house? How? JonBenet's Ramsey's pageant history. In a pre-toddlers and tiaras world, the media incredulously spotlighted JonBenet's participation in children's beauty pageants, with most of the commentary being on what sort of mother lets her child parade around like that variety. Having competed and performed at local events since she was 4, there were myriad of photos of JonBenet wearing a full face of makeup and videos that became Rorschach's test for critics of the Ramseys. Rorschach tests for critics of the Ramseys who were looking for signs of sexual abuse or other trauma. Behind the child's precocious poise. And people who claimed to have diagnosed as much had no qualms saying it on TV. The Netflix series, including a clip from Geraldo, in which a woman identified as a well-known expert in child abuse described one of JonBenet's performances as, "Hey, yo, that's crazy." her performance. Can't even say that word on YouTube. Man, that's crazy. Host Geraldo Rivera was staging a mock trial on his show, during which a 6-person jury found Patsy liable for her daughter's death. I went to bed for about 2 days, she said in the 1998 documentary, The Ramseys versus the Media, because I was just mortified. Reflecting on his enthusiastic coverage of the case, Rivera told Chicago Tribune in '06, everyone I came in contact with was talking about the Ramsey case, whether it was my nanny or the people in the neighborhood or the guy that takes care of the koi pond. Even his mom wanted the details, he added. So when it gets to that level, you know, it has an interest that's almost universal. The pageant commentary painted the Ramseys as delinquent parents, recalled Paula Woodward, an investigative reporter for KUSA Denver, who covered the case from the beginning. She interviewed JonBenet's pediatrician at the time. The journalist said, he told me, no, she's never had any sexual abuse in her life. He would have lost his medical license if he had ever lied about that. In a '97 interview, the doctor said that there was never any hint of whatsoever of sexual abuse. I didn't see any hint of emotional abuse or physical abuse. She was very much loved child. But as seen on tabloid covers shown in the series, there was plenty of speculation that the child may have been abused in lieu of evidence to allege that she really was. Let me address it very directly. I did not kill my daughter, JonBenet, John told reporters during May 1 of 1997 news conference. There have been innuendos that she has been or was sexually molested. I can tell you that those were the most hurtful innuendos to us as a family. Who cares, man? I mean, we're trying to get to the bottom of it. They are totally false. JonBenet and I had a very close relationship. I will miss her dearly for the rest of my life. Added Patsy, I'm appalled that anyone would think that John or I would be involved in such heinous crime, But let me assure you that I did not kill JonBenet and did not have anything to do with it. I love that child with my whole heart and soul. This is the thing about it, though, Patsy. We don't know you. We don't know you. So how would we know how to make a judgment call? We're just going off what the news is reporting, what people are telling us. The Ramseys' questionable silence. JonBenet was laid to rest in Atlanta next to her half-sister Beth Ramsey, one of John's 3 grown children from his first marriage. She died in a car accident in '92 on December 31, or '92. By then, the family had a spokesperson release his statements to the media and had hired a lawyer by December 31, which at the time smelled a little funny. Fox News McKinley said in a series of in the series. And we were like, what's going on? John said in the series, however, that their attorneys had advised them to be careful about anything that they said or did. Of course, did you have attorneys before? Or did you get attorneys because of this? But we gave the police everything they asked for, John said. Blood samples, DNA samples, whatever they asked for, recall records, all of our credit cards, anything they asked us for, we gave it to them. Meanwhile, he added, I would have been happy to die, quite frankly, to relieve the pain. But the media filling in the blanks so long as the Ramseys, remain silent. Soon enough, friends in Boulder advised them to grant an interview ASAP. John recalled. So he and Patsy sat down with CNN on January 1 of '97. There is a killer on the loose. Patsy memorably said at the time, I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but if I were a resident of Boulder, I would tell my friends to keep your babies close to you. There's someone out there, and that's a funny statement coming from Patsy, because when we started asking about, in the interviews and the depositions, when we started asking about the level of safety that they felt, you're telling me that you had no reason to keep your alarms locked or engaged after this incident, whether in Colorado or in Atlanta. You're telling me that you had no reason to start, being diligent about you losing your alarm. But here you are talking about the fact that, hey, keep your babies close because something could happen. And you wouldn't want to keep your only baby left, which is Burke. You wouldn't want him to keep him close and protect him by locking your doors. That's weird. Or providing that he's safe in some way, shape, or form. Following the Ramseys interview, the then Boulder Mayor Leslie Durgan said on TV that there was no visible sign of forced entry at the Ramseys' residence, and the cops were saying, based on where JonBenet's body was found, that someone had to know the house. Oh, come on. So there isn't a crazed killer on the loose wandering in the streets of Boulder. Come on. Come on. See, this is the problem with you, John. This is the problem. See, you acted like the cops weren't doing their job and they weren't trying to get to the bottom of things. But we have Leslie Durgan coming out on television along with the backing of the cops saying, look, we don't see any forced entry because that's